Welcome to the Nine Men Morris Project. I'm Mr. Smith. I'll be your host today. Thank you very much. All right, it's week one. Let's start out with a video warm-up. This one's called Boiling Water to Snow.
What are you doing, Sam?
So what I've done is boiled water in the kettle. So it's boiling water. We're going to pour it in here and then throw it in the air and it's going to evaporate. Ready?
Oh, wow! That's amazing.
Usually if it was warm out it would go kerplunk in the snow, but
That's so cool.
it's like instant fog.
I know. That's crazy.
This one's one of my favorites. It's called the Lightning Bolt Captured. Watch this. They're going to shoot a lightning bolt into a piece of glass. It's still flickering. Watch this one more time. That was like slow motion. Very awesome. This is a new product coming out. It's called the Wave Cabinet. If I could find one online, I'd get one myself. Pesky ads. Pretty awesome. Hey, now it's time for Weird But True. Did you know that astronauts grow up to 3 inches longer in space? That's true. Mostly because they're in microgravity, which means nothing's really keeping all the muscles and the weight and the bones down on the ground, so they tend to spread out a little bit. And now I present to you the segment called Doodling in Math Class. Have you ever doodled in math class? Have you ever just drawn a star or something? Well, you get to do it here. You'll need a piece of paper and a pencil for this activity. All right, so let's say you do doodle stars in math class, and maybe you doodle some star that looks like this, or maybe it's a little bit more technical like this, or maybe you're a little more artsy and you draw a star like this, or maybe you're a Star Wars fan and you draw the Death Star or a Battle Star or whatever these things are called, or maybe even Patrick Star. Now, I'm going to show you a video. It's a little fast, but it's kind of cool to watch. It's about doodling in math class.
Let's say you're me and you're in math class and you're supposed to be learning about factoring. Trouble is, your teacher is too busy trying to convince you that factoring is a useful skill for the average person to know, with real-world applications ranging from passing your state exams all the way to getting a higher SAT score, and unfortunately does not have the time to show you why factoring is actually interesting. It's perfectly reasonable for you to get bored in this situation, so like any reasonable person, you start doodling. Maybe it's because your teacher's soporific voice reminds you of a lullaby, but you're drawing stars. And because you're me, you quickly get bored of the usual 5-pointed star and get to wondering, why 5? So you start exploring. It seems obvious that a 5-pointed star is the simplest one, the one that takes the least number of strokes to draw. Sure, you can make a star with 4 points, but that's not really a star the way you're defining stars. Then there's the 6-pointed star, which is also pretty familiar, but totally different from the 5-pointed star because it takes 2 separate lines to make. And then you're thinking about how, much like you can put 2 triangles together to make a 6-pointed star, you can put 2 squares together to make an 8-pointed star, and any even-numbered star with p points can be made out of 2 p over 2 gons. It is at this point that you realize that if you wanted to avoid thinking about factoring, maybe drawing stars was not the brightest idea. But wait, 4 would be an even number of points, but that would mean you could make it out of 2 two-gons. Maybe you were taught polygons with only 2 sides can't exist, but for the purposes of drawing stars it works out rather well. Sure, the 4-pointed star doesn't look too star-like, but then you realize you can make the 6-pointed star out of 3 of these things, and you've got an asterisk, which is definitely a legitimate star. In fact, for any star where the number of points is divisible by 2, you can draw it asterisk style. But that's not quite what you're looking for. What you want is a doodle game, and here it is. Draw P points in a circle, evenly spaced. Pick a number Q. Starting at one point, go around the circle and connect to the point Q places over. Repeat. If you get to the starting place before you've covered all the points, jump to a lonely point and keep going. That's how you draw stars. And it's a successful game in that previously you were considering running screaming from the room, or the window is open, so that's an option too. But now you're not only entertained, but beginning to become curious about the nature of this game. The interesting thing is that the more points you have, the more different ways there is to draw the star. I happen to like 7-pointed stars because there's 2 really good ways to draw them, but they're still simple. I would like to note here that I've never actually left a math class by the window, not that I can say the same for other subjects. 8 is interesting too, because not only are there a couple nice ways to draw it, but one's a composite of 2 polygons, while another can be drawn without picking up the pencil. Then
All right, I'm going to pause there. We're going to move on to the next slide, mostly because it gets kind of complicated from there. So let's start out rather simple. We're going to start out drawing.
Okay, so you have your piece of paper and pencil.
I'm going to mute myself here if you don't mind, and we're going to make this full screen. Nope, we're not. We're going to keep it small screen. All right. So basically you got a piece of paper and a pencil, right? Good. Well, to doodle in math class, very simple. All you do is draw a circle out of a certain amount of points. Here, I'm going to draw a circle out of 7 points. Very simple to do. Just make a circle of 7 points, and even though it's not perfect, it should be close enough. We call this the P factor. P standing for points. So in this case, P equals 7. Now, we need something to count by. We call this the Q factor. It's the amount of points that we skip. And we're going to put an arbitrary number here. We'll just call it 3. I'm going to change the color of my pen there, and I'm going to put a red dot right above the top dot in that circle. And I'm going to count 3 dots over. 1, 2, 3, and put a red dot at that 3 that I just counted. Basically, from here, you just connect the lines. From the starting point, which is always the top dot, we counted 3, and we draw a straight line down to our 3rd dot. Now I'm going to count 3 again. 1, 2, 3, and bring my line up to that dot. Now I'm just going to keep counting 3s, and I'm going to keep connecting. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Eventually, you start to see a pattern forming, and you don't even have to count. We just complete the pattern. And there you have it. A beautiful star based on 7 points and counting by 3s. And it's that simple. You give it a try now. Well, maybe you paused, or maybe you're continuing to watch. I don't know, because this is a recording. I guarantee that your doodling with star looks great. But keep one thing in mind. Don't blame me if you get caught by the teacher. Hey, we're moving on to our next segment. This is called Counting Like the Roman Soldiers Do, or did, however you look at it. Hey, maybe you learned about Roman numerals back in 2nd grade, and just didn't seem to care that much. Well, I mean, why would you? We don't use it anymore or anything like that. But every once in a while, it's kind of nice to know. And since we're talking about Roman soldiers and stuff for the 9Men Morris project, let's learn a little bit about it. This is the year 2015. M equals 1,000, M equals 1,000, X is 10, V is 5, 2015. So I got another little video here. We'll call this counting with the Romans. This one's actually very simple. We're going to learn to count to 3 in Roman style. 1, 2, 3. Well, that's how we all learned ever since we were about 3 years old, right? Well, see, the Romans didn't have symbols kind of like ours back then. So what they did was probably like most people back in those days is they counted by sticks. Well, 1 stick equaled 1 thing. And 2 sticks, of course, equaled, well, 2 things. And they topped it off with a nice little line at the top and the bottom, and it makes it look kind of nice. 1, 2, 3, that's it. 1 stick, 2 stick, 3 sticks. Once they got to 4, though, they started to say to themselves, boy, if we keep counting, we're going to have a lot of sticks, and we don't have a lot of paper. So let's do something different for 4. Should we? Oh, sure, why not? That's what they did. They did something different for 4, and we'll find that out next time when we count like a Roman soldier. Which brings us to our next segment, speaking of soldiers. So you want to be a Roman soldier. Hey, in this segment, I'm going to teach you guys what it's like to be a Roman soldier. Here we go. Well, before we do anything, when we talk about history, we got to understand just exactly where in history we're talking. So let's take a look at this little video. A little travel through time, if you don't mind. And let's start off with today. We'll travel to New York City in our present day. This is what it looks like. Go back in time. Let's go across to San Francisco. Yeah, 1976. This is when the first Apple computer was made. That's right, there it is. The first home computer made out of wood. 1969, Apollo 11, the moon launch. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins. 1957, Russia. This is a Sputnik. Sputnik was the first thing in outer space man-made. This is the second thing, Leica the dog. The first one beeped, the second one barked. 1955, rock and roll. That's right. Elvis the pelvis. Elvis Presley. Moving on, back over to Europe. Let's go to France. 1944, D-Day invasion. World War II. Now we're looking at Italy. I don't know why, but hey, here we go. We're back. Chicago's Fair. World's Fair, 1933. This, boys and girls, the first microwave oven. Tall as a refrigerator. 1927, New Mexico. This is Robert Goddard, the first liquid-powered rocket. 1927, the first television broadcast. That's a TV? You're kidding me. Can't play video games on that. Hey, 1914, World War I. The Germans against, well, everybody else. 1912, that's when the Titanic sailed away for its voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. The unsinkable Titanic. Well, it sunk. Spoiler alert, in case you catch the movie. All right, let's continue on. 1903, the Wright brothers. There it is, famous picture. 13-second long flight. 1 passenger. It made it on time, by the way. 1903, the Ford Motor Company. That's right, Henry Ford mass produces cars for the first time. 1897, Italy. This, boys and girls, radio. Somebody by the name Marconi. Sounds a lot like macaroni. 1879, New Jersey. This would be Alva Edison. Thomas Alva Edison, actually. The light bulb. 1865, Washington, D.C. Abraham Lincoln, Emancipation Proclamation. Do you see where I'm going? We are stepping back in time to the Roman time. We got to go through all these things first so you understand. Philadelphia, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Ben Franklin, Declaration of Independence. Do a little editing there. Let's go back some 100 years, to the time of exploration, 14s and the 15s. Nina Pinta Santaramaya. That's right. How about the 1100s to the 1500s? The time of kings and queens. King Henry VIII. Someone you don't want to date. 1000 years AD, China. That is a firecracker, not a rocket. Let's get that straight. Here in Italy, 117 AD, Rome. This is about the time of you and about the time of the Roman Empire. So basically, about 2,000 years ago. That's where we're looking at. That's the time of you, the Roman soldier. So, you want to be a Roman soldier? Let's hop a flight. Let's hop a flight to a place called Italy. Oh, that's quite a takeoff, yo. Oh my goodness. Shoo. Is that a rocket? All right. Thank you. Heading off to Italy. Here we go. Yada, yada, yada. Oops. Hey, let me go back a slide. We missed something there. So, let's take a look at what we have here. This would be, of course, Europe you're looking at, the other side of the globe. You got Africa, the bottom left, Europe right there in the middle, and that would be Iceland, the one that's green, and Greenland, the one that's ice. And of course, there's Russia, and the Arabian Peninsula, and China, of course, and the Egypt area, things like that. But we want to zoom in on this thing that looks like a boot, because that is the country of Italy. Now, 2,000 years ago, that was actually the Empire of Rome. See, Rome was just a city that grew into a big city that grew into a big way of doing things, and they decided to take over, well, whatever land they could. That's right. So that's where we're headed, everybody. Let's check out the city of Rome, shall we? So our plane is now landing. And our plane is landing here, the Roman airport. And we're getting into a taxi, and we're taking our way, we're making our way over to the city of Rome, which is right there. You can see all that gray stuff. Those are just houses and buildings and walls and things like that. That is the entire city, and it's a big city. But it didn't used to be that big. But the cool thing is it used to be right there, right where we're looking, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, as a matter of fact. That's an old city. Now, the cool part here is that you can see this dark green area that I'm circling with my hand. That is the ancient city of Rome. See, the modern day people, they decided to remember their history and they didn't tear it down. It's still there. That's something you want to see when you get old. Put it on your bucket list. We're going to zoom in. As we zoom in, you'll start to see a circle appear. Well, that is called the Colosseum. Back then, it was a stadium, and can you believe that? 2,000 years ago, not 3,000. 2,000 years ago, they built this thing, and it's a stadium, and it's still there. I mean, some of it's crumbling and everything, but you can still go in and tour this thing. And here on Google Earth, we can actually get up real close. As you see here, what we're looking at is the stage, this whiter area. And you can see underneath the stage. Now, the emperor would come here to see shows, and all the people would come here, whoever had the money to do it, to see shows, except the shows weren't like soccer or baseball or opera or anything like that. Nope. Basically, it was gladiators, and these were like captured slaves, and they said, hey, if you want to live, you got to go with this sword and helmet and get out there and try to kill the other guy. Yeah, that's basically how it went. This other thing over here, this track, is called Circus Maximus. Oh, we've got one of those here in Las Vegas. Not the same thing. Anyway, what this is was the emperor's kind of like racetrack. So, and it's still basically there. Even the place where the emperor sat, you can still see some of the remains I'm going to show you a better picture of it, what it looked like 2,000 years ago. Anyway, that's the city of Rome. Now, a couple of cool maps for you. The one on the left is the modern day Rome, but the one on the right here is actually the ancient city of Rome. And you can see by this purple line here, this was the wall that protected the city back in the days. And that was it. That's how big the city was. And you can see it here. If you follow the path of the river, you can see that it still is there today. Two things I want to point out is, of course, you can see the Colosseum here on the right and the Circus Maximus pointed on the left. And in the ancient city, you can see where those were placed. And I'm clicking, and I'm going to show you a picture of those two things, of what they look like 2,000 years ago. The whole city was just this white stone. I'm not sure how clean it was, but it certainly was a fascinating place to be, especially in that time, a time mostly of farmers and scavengers and hunters. You could live in an organized city, such as the city of Rome, and it's what made it so amazing. So the Colosseum is here on our right. You can see Circus Maximus. You can also see, if you look right here, this isn't the wall that I pointed out earlier, but this is what's called an aqueduct. It carried their water, their fresh water. So you want to be a Roman soldier. Well, the next session, we're going to find out who you are, Roman soldier. I've got a name for you and everything. All right, it's time to learn about Nine Men's Morris. It's actually why we're here. We're learning about this ancient game. Session 1. What is Nine Men's Morris? Well, basically, before we go on, I want you to know what your goal is. Your goal is to make this triple-decker game based on the Nine Men Morris game. It will look something like this. This is one of my students who built the game, and you can see that the game is held up by tubes, and the center and the top section are actually clear plastic. That's what you have to make. Now, Nine Men Morris is a little bit easier than chess. This is the Nine Men Morris game board. But it's a little bit harder than checkers, too. So it's right in between. It's nice and comfortable for us. And the reason why we study Rome and the ancients is because mainly the game was found carved into many of the items and walls and places and things of the Roman Empire and the Egyptian Empire at the time. You could find Nine Men Morris carved into paintings, into stones. This last one I just collected is a Roman soldier's shield. That's right. In between battles, they put their shields down and play. Find some rocks somewhere. All you need are 18 rocks and you're good to go. The most interesting part, though, is that Nine Men Morris was found carved in between the toilet seats of the public restrooms. Well, let's explain that just a little bit farther. You see, back in the Roman days, well, they didn't have the same kind of attitudes we do about using the potty. You just simply went wherever there was a public restroom, and it didn't matter if you were a boy or a girl, you just went into here, sat down, and did your business. And if you're like a lot of guys, you take a little bit longer than usual. So they would find the game carved in between the seats right about here. So people could play, while they're doing their business. I know it's gross, but what can you say? That's probably what it looked like back then. Oh, and by the way, they used this to, well, wipe their bums. It was called the public sponge. Enough of that. All right, let's learn about the game. Now, this is a computer game that I'm going to send you, or I've already sent you. Let's check it out. Players take turns to place their pieces onto the empty spots on the board. If you form a line of 3, well, that's called a mill. Get rid of that ad. Pieces formed in a mill cannot be removed unless no other pieces are left on the board. After all the pieces are used, the pieces on the board can be moved. Click one of your pieces and the adjacent empty spot to move. If you cannot do so, yada, yada, yada. And if you're down to 3 players, well, you get to fly your piece, which is cool, which means you get to pick it up and you get to move it, which makes it a lot of fun. Now, I'm going to start playing the game. It's me against the computer. So here I am. I place my first piece. The computer places his piece. There are 9 places to piece. I'm sorry, there are 9 pieces to place. So you take your turn one at a time, and you try to get a mill, which is 3 in a row. If you get that mill, then you can take the other player's piece. But every time I try to get a mill, the computer seems to block me. I'm going to block him right there. See it? 1, 2, 3. I'm the white. Well, he was able to get a mill, and he just took one of my pieces. Boo on you, computer. All right, let's go there. How about here? All right, now it's time for me to move. All my 9 pieces are placed on the board. I've got one taken away because the computer formed a mill. And now it's my turn to move, except I'm going to block his mill right there. Yeah. All right, he blocks me right there. See the black moved right there? I'm going to take my white and move him up. Black over to the right. What can I do? I can't seem to get a mill here. But look out. He's getting pretty close to a mill. Smart computer. Goodness gracious. All right. Uh-oh. He got a mill. He takes my corner piece. Gone. Moving up. He just moves over. Now watch what he does here. I got to make a move. I can't block him, but he just moves over one and then moves back into a mill. Over one, back into a mill. He now kind of has me cornered. So all I can hope for here is to get down to 3 pieces and fly, which means I get to lift my pieces up. He's got to slide, so I might have a chance. So I'm kind of just sacrificing until I get to that 3, which is right there. Now I've got my 3 and I can fly. So I can go anywhere. Boom, got a mill. I can take one of his pieces. But I can't take from his mills. That's what stinks. And I'm gonna, for some reason I flew there. I think I sacrificed just so you could see how we play the game. And the computer won. Boo on you, computer. Well, it's time for you to consider your assignment. Your assignment is this. I'm going to send you, or I've already sent you, a couple of places where you can play Nine Men's Morris online. Play the game several times so you're familiar with it. Just think about a couple strategies. And that is all. And now next week, we're going to actually make a game board. Should be a lot of fun. And I'll see you next time. For the Nine Men Morris Project, I'm Mr. Smith. Have a good week.